Hey YouTube, Joe Walker here. I'm going live right now for my student Jordan, and I want to do Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's going to require 4 power chords, one at the first fret, root 6. Root 6 means the lowest note is on the 6th string, on the low E string. So we need that power chord. Make sure you're muting the remaining strings whenever you do a power chord. Next, we need to go first fret on the A string. Those are the notes that we hear. All the other strings are muted, including the low E string. That should clunk out, and then the top 2 strings should clunk out. So when you go through all 6 strings, you get clunk, 3 clear notes, then 2 clunks. Next, we go to 4th fret on the E string, root 6 on the 4th fret. We get that. And 4th fret, root 5. Notice that every time I check the power chord, I'm going through all 6 strings to make sure everything is doing what I want it to. We want 3 clear notes, and the other strings should be muted out whenever you do a power chord. Now, the rhythm part on this, on the right side, is kind of the tricky part. So we're going to isolate things. It's nice to just spend a little time on those first fret chords, those 2 chords, and just go back and forth on those just as an exercise. And then we can do the same thing on these 2 chords, because the same thing happens in both pairs. So here's what we want to start with. Without doing the entire pattern in the right hand, we're going to go. I'm moving back and forth between these first 2 power chords on the root 6, first fret, and root 5, first fret. I've got a particular rhythm that I'm doing in my right hand. See if you can get it, and then I'll break it down a little more in a minute. So on the first chord, it's very important to keep your right hand moving. We don't want it to freeze and do this, because then we have to stop everything and then decide when to move it again. And it doesn't help our timing any when we have to stop and then decide when to start again. This helps our timing, to keep this going the whole time. So sometimes it's really helpful to just listen to something. Listen to the actual recording by Nirvana. Listen to the last minute of me doing it in this video, and just keep this going the whole time. Without actually playing, just do this with the beat. So you're doing this, and it's going. Then it's very clear which direction everything should be going and what it should feel like between strums. When you're not hearing anything happening, this should still be moving the whole time. So we get this. Down, skip, up, down. That's our first strum, like little strum phrase on the very first chord. Down, skip the strings, up, down. All of that together. Down, skip, up, down. That's the first chord. Skip, up, skip, up. It's so important to keep that hand moving in there. So you think of it as down, skip, up, down. And thinking of that skip by itself keeps your hand moving until you don't have to think of it anymore in the future. And when we go to the next chord, there's a gap of time. We still want to keep this moving through there. So sometimes it's helpful to just think of those extra beats and even say them out loud, like da, 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 da. So you're keeping this moving as placeholders all the time. Never let your right hand stop moving when you're doing that. Now do the same thing at the 4th fret. So that's kind of the skeleton pattern that we're going to use, and start filling in more strums around that. Next, we want to add the mutes in between the chords. We're going to go. Now to do the mutes in between, assuming your power chord is solid and you're muting all of those extra strings, like we talked about in the beginning, all you have to do is relax your fingers from the strings that they're fretting. And then you should have automatic mutes. This is one of the great features of power chords. Everywhere you go, all you have to do is relax your fingers and you have automatic mutes everywhere when you're playing power chords. So we're using it here when we're going from one chord to the next, like that. We're hitting those mutes in between. So that was actually while I was moving my hand, moving my fingers from one set of strings to the next. It's sort of like I want them to crawl over the strings without losing touch. I don't want to lift them off completely and put them back down on the next set of strings, because then I'll get while I'm changing. I want everything to be muted all the time when I'm changing. So I can move this power chord shape anywhere I want to on the fretboard, and everything's muted wherever I go. If you watch closely at my left hand, you can see my fingers crawling over to the next set of strings. It's all the motion you have to do. You never have to let go of the strings. You never have to take them off and put them back down again. You just manhandle the strings. Make sure you're always touching them as you move them over. That will be a different story when we move from fret 1 to fret 4 and vice versa. We are going to let go a little bit there. I'll get to that later. So let's do that same thing at the 4th fret now. Now we're going to add in, let's put it all together, and then I'll show you where we need to add something in. So we're going to go fret 1, root 6, root 5, and then fret 4, root 6, root 5. And I'll put that all together now. See if you can play along. 3 and 4 and... A little faster. A little faster. Faster. Full speed. I think that might have been full speed from what I remember of the song. Might have been a little bit even faster than that. Anyway, we've got 2 more things to add. We're going to throw in a little open chord thing like that. Like when I hit that, it doesn't sound like it's part of Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like that. But it's definitely in there as we transition from this B flat power chord, which is 1st fret A string. When we're moving up to the 4th fret, right there, we hit it. And to my ears, this always sounded like he was going in both directions. It always sounded like that was in there, and there's so much distortion on the chorus of this song that it's really hard to hear. But if you listen closely to the intro, you can hear him just let go of the strings instead of muting in between. He lets go to move to the 4th fret, and we get those 2 notes right there are the same as this power chord that I thought I was hearing. So that's why I thought it was happening. So you can target the 2 middle strings as you do this. But we know it doesn't need to be that clean. If you think of how fast it's going and how it might sound with distortion. I'm not hitting anything accurately in there. I might be hitting all 6 strings, or I might be hitting a few strings in the middle because I'm going fast enough, but we don't need to think about hitting exactly only a certain set of strings. For me, I target those 2 middle strings, but I just take my hand and go. I don't know if I hit those 2 strings only or if I hit other strings along with them. It's probably messy enough and inaccurate enough that I'm hitting other strings with them. So the way we can approach this is think of the way you strum this power chord, the second one, down, down, and then you wait, and then you go to the 4th fret. Throw in another strum, regardless of what your fingers were doing there. Maybe you were sliding along the strings. Maybe you opened it up and moved like that. If you just throw in another strum while you're moving, then you can just let that messy moment happen, because that's what it's supposed to be. It's like the guitar is taking a breath. It's like that messy little moment in between this clear chord and then something weird, and then this clear chord. And then ditto when you're going back to the 1st fret, you can use it there. Final thing to add is, if you listen closely to the intro of the song again, where you can really hear all of the strums, when there's all that distortion through the rest of the song, it's hard to hear the distinct strums. But in the intro, it's strummed a little bit differently the 3 or 4 times you can clearly hear it. And there are a couple of things that I have simplified, probably more than I needed to in order to play the riff accurately, but I simplified them for the sake of teaching it correctly. It's right there. Usually he hits at the end of each chord that's root 5. He'll hit it twice, down, up. And then when he opens up and does that in between, the messy open strings in between, he'll hit that twice too. So he's throwing in extra strums in there, but they're the extra up strums that we were missing when we were doing all those as down strums. When we went down, 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 he's really doing down, down, up, down, up, down. At a fast speed, then those kind of inconsistencies will happen. Sometimes you'll hit those upstrokes when you didn't mean to. Sometimes you'll miss them when you meant to hit them, and it's all good. As long as you're keeping the beat of the song together and you're keeping the progression of those chords intact, it's going to sound great. So let me do that at slow speed again, and then speed it up to what I think is full speed. And you can allow yourself to be inconsistent with this, as long as you're consistently hitting the chords at the right times and you're consistently hitting the overall feel of the rhythm. The individual strums, you don't have to be so rigorous about. You can shoot for the thing that I showed you, like up to halfway in this video, this. You can shoot for that, but if some extra strums creep in there, totally fine. You can allow those to happen. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow those to happen and go from medium up to full speed right now. 3 and 4 and... There you go. I think that was full speed, and that's everything I got for you today. Hopefully you're enjoying playing this song. It's really fun to play once you get those strumming mutes going. That was one of my favorite things to play when I was a beginner guitarist in my first year on the guitar. Enjoy. Let me know how it goes, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.